Live from the studio, I'm Jimmy Selesky. How much does an idea weigh? That's a thought that I've been having today. So last night, you had a dream. And in that dream, you're walking down your old neighborhood street. It's a beautiful sunny day. You can feel the sun on your skin. There's a cool breeze blowing around you. The trees are swaying in the wind, the grass swaying in the wind. You can feel your feet on the ground, walking, just like normal. When all of a sudden, a strange man pops out from behind the corner and starts chasing you. Ah! Now you're running, or you're trying to run, but each one of your legs feels like they weigh 100 pounds, and you're doing the best you can, and you're just barely getting some type of movement going, and you're trying your best, and you're just staying out of his reach. You're moving slow. You get to a fence, and you grab onto the fence, and you pull yourself up, and you're so freaking heavy. You get to the top of the fence, and just when you think you're about to make it over, the stranger grabs your foot, pulls you down, takes a baseball bat, swings it at your head, and boom, you wake up. So here's a question for you. How much did your legs weigh? Exactly how hard was that sidewalk beneath your feet? And most importantly, who was that guy that was chasing you? The answer, how much did your legs weigh? They didn't. How hard was that sidewalk? It wasn't. And who was that guy? Well, that was you. And you may say, well, that wasn't me. I was the guy running down the street. I was the guy who got hit in the head with the bat. What are you talking about? Oh, that was you? Was it? Check your head real quick. You have any bruises? You took quite a hit to the head, I gotta say. You gotta have some scrapes on your knees or something from that fall. Nothing? Oh, so I guess that wasn't you. It was just in your head. Well, that's the same place that other guy was. He was also in your head. So I guess the only real difference between you and that guy chasing you is that in this entirely made up situation you created entirely in your own head, you happen to perceive you as the guy being chased. And that other guy chasing you, he was just some guy that was chasing you for some reason. It wasn't you. And you were on your neighborhood street running down the sidewalk under the hot, shining sun and a cool breeze blowing all around. But here's the thing. That guy was never there. The sidewalk wasn't there. The sun wasn't there. But most importantly, neither were you. None of that was real. It felt real. You could touch the sidewalk. You could feel the weight of your own body. You could feel the breeze. You could smell the grass. You could see the clear blue sky and the sun radiating down upon you. And you're telling me that none of that was real? That everything about that scenario we just described was imaginary? Now, last time we talked about consciousness on this show, we ended on the ultimate question that confounds science and philosophy. That question is, how did something come from nothing? We look all around us and we see things. There are things. Like right now, this is a thing. Your TV is a thing. I'm a thing. Look, I can touch it. I can feel it. I can smell it. I can hear it. I can walk on the ground and feel the ground beneath me. I can look at the sky and see the sun. So we all agree that there is objectively something. There is stuff, right? Well, maybe. I mean, if there's something, then it's really difficult to imagine how something just exists. Because, like we ask on this show all the time, it could have just as easily been that nothing exists. In fact, that appears to be the more natural state of things. Why would something just exist when there doesn't seem to be a reason for that at all? Like, if there's just nothing, why would there suddenly be something? What would be the impetus for that? Nothing is just sitting around one day and goes, you know what? I think I should be something. Why would that happen? So it kind of doesn't make sense why there would be something at all. And therein lies that question. Why did that happen? How did that happen? There's obviously stuff all around us that, again, we can touch, we can see, we can smell, we can hear, we can taste. We have entire experiences. Talking to other people, arguing with other people, going to the store and shopping alongside other people. We live our entire lives in the presence of all this stuff, all this something. This is something. There is something. So, given that we all acknowledge that, why? How? Well, here's a thought. I see your objective, observed physical reality, that there is something and it's all around us. And I raise you, nope. How about no? How about no? What if not? See, it's very hard to conceive of the idea that all this stuff around us just exists. But we are, of course, working off the assumption that all this stuff around us actually exists. It becomes a lot easier to conceive of how all this something around us came from nothing if, in fact, that something is actually nothing. Now, all we have to explain is how nothing imagined something. All that stuff, all that something existed in your dream, right? Remember? You were walking down the street. There was a guy chasing you. Your house that you grew up in was right up the street, and there were houses lining each up and down the row, little row homes. And the sun was shining down. It was all there. Heavy row homes, tall buildings. Hard pavement. You stepped on the sidewalk. You didn't fall through the sidewalk. You were on top of it. Running or trying to run. But you weren't. Again, you weren't. And we all understand that when we wake up from our dream, of course. It doesn't even register as anything profound to even think about. You talk about it like nonchalant, like, yeah, I had a ridiculous dream last night. Well, again, it wasn't ridiculous when you were dreaming it. You know what it's called when you are in a dream and you are aware that you're in a dream? That's called lucid dreaming. I'm fortunate enough to accidentally have that happen to me from time to time. It seems to be a thing that runs in the family a little bit. Everyone in our family on my dad's side seems to have had experiences with that. My brother, my uncle, my father. And it's interesting because when you become aware on some level that you're actually in the middle of a dream, you have this almost godlike power to do anything you want. You can fly, you can communicate with other people in my dreams, recognizing that they are just projections of my subconscious, and ask them questions and literally communicate with my subconscious consciously to explore the inner depths of my psyche. I could do any of that. And it is kind of funny that despite all of that, 99% of the time I find myself in that situation, I use this godlike ability to have sex with an attractive woman. I'll talk to my subconscious later. We got things to do here. But nonetheless, that's, hey, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You got to seize opportunities when they come to you, folks. Now, I bring up lucid dreaming because anybody who is really like practiced in this art, because it is an art, it's something you actually have to like work at. It used to happen to me when I was a kid, and it still does from time to time. Again, just by accident, if all the right circumstances align, I'll just find myself consciously aware in a dream and that'll happen. But there are actually like ways to work at this, and it really has to do with practicing things in your waking life, where you're constantly checking to see if this is real life. And if you put yourself in the habit of doing that when you're awake, then you will find yourself doing that in a dream. And what will happen is that when you start to have certain ways of testing if what you're experiencing is actually real, and you apply those tests in a dream, you will find that those tests fail. If you try to breathe underwater and suddenly you can, okay, this must not be real. If you look at a clock every second and the clock is entirely at a different time every time you look at it, okay, this isn't real. In the movie Inception, they call them totems or whatever, so you can know when you're in a dream. And that in and of itself is profound, in that your dream world is so incredibly convincing that the only way of actually knowing if it's not real is by comparing it to what you objectively know to be real in your conscious reality. Outside of that comparison, to know that, well, clocks don't just change to randomly different times every other second. I can't breathe underwater. This top will eventually stop spinning in the case of Inception. Those are the only ways you can know. So you have to have like a real reality to compare it to in order to identify the false reality of your dreams. But what if there is no real reality to compare this reality to? What if this is reality and we have no other experience to even compare it to in order to recognize whether or not this is actually real? On the previous consciousness episode as well, we discussed the idea of self-referential reasoning. And this is a prime example. Your idea that everything you're experiencing right now is real is entirely self-referential, meaning it entirely bases whether or not it's real on the idea that it's the only thing we've ever experienced as real. Well, that's not exactly hardline proof, is it? Your only metric as to whether or not I'm actually holding a hat right now and I'm actually feeling the brim and seeing the Maryland state flag and all the above. Well, my only metric of the reality of this is that I've never really been shown that I'm not holding a hat when I think I'm holding a hat, or I'm not looking at the state flag when I'm looking at the state flag. Now, of course, in a dream, this happens all the time. I might dream that I was wearing a hat. Turns out I wasn't wearing a hat at all when I woke up, unless I was wearing a hat when I went to bed. Who knows? Maybe that'll destroy my entire model of reality that I'm trying to build. You, in fact, were wearing a hat when you fell asleep, sir. Podcast over. Okay, you get what I'm saying. In those moments, the only reason you know that wasn't real is because when you wake up, it turns out it wasn't real. And so you're like, oh, that wasn't real. But surely this is real. It's certainly not Palestine. Sorry. Okay. Surely this is real. Well, says who? Well, says the fact that this is all we've ever seen. This is all we've ever known. This has been my experience my entire life. That's a jar of peanut butter over there. It's kind of hot in here. Wish I could turn the AC on. It's a little loud. All of this is real, though. This is definitely real. I guess. I mean, maybe. Assuming it is real, then we've got a lot of work to do in figuring out how all this stuff got here. Assuming it isn't real, though, we have a lot less work to do, don't we? Assuming it isn't real, all we really have to do is figure out who the hell is dreaming this up. And where did they come from? You know, what I've always found interesting is the idea of like a blind person. People will say, well, what do blind people see? Do they just see like blackness? And the answer is no, they just literally see nothing. They don't see. You know, if you close your eyes, you still see something. Like if you close your eyes in a brightly lit room and then somebody turns the lights off, you'll know it because what you see behind your eyelids will change. It'll get darker. So you don't really ever not see. You're just blocking your vision when you close your eyes. A blind person literally doesn't see. You have to see blackness, right? Blackness is a thing you can see. But what if you literally don't see? The concept of sight is not something that has entered your brain or something that I guess is even conceivable to you if it's not something you've ever experienced. It's the concept of sight and color is about as conceivable to a blind person as if I were to explain to you some sense that none of us has. Like, I don't know, I can't even think of one. Like, I literally can't think of another sense. Like, obviously the idea of hearing sound seems so obvious, and seeing light seems obvious, and tasting and feeling and smelling, those all seem obvious. But then you're like, okay, well, what's another thing I could sense? I can't even conceive of something that I can't sense being a sense because I can't sense it. It literally doesn't make sense. And when you realize how ingrained that perception of reality has formed your idea of what reality is, then you're really thinking, because you are so immersed in your five senses of reality, in your conscious sensory experience of reality, that you almost can't even imagine any form of reality that exists outside of those perceptions. Likewise, seeing something is so incredibly part of your mind at this point that you can't imagine not seeing. All you can imagine is seeing darkness, but you can't imagine seeing nothing. You can't imagine literally not seeing. You open your eyes, and there are things there. You can see those things when you open your eyes. When you close your eyes, you can see the back of your eyelids. Interestingly enough, I was thinking about this when I was running yesterday. When you're asleep, the deepest cycle of sleep is called REM, your REM cycle, rapid eye movement. This is when you're in your deepest sleep and your eyes are just kind of bling, because it is in that moment when you're literally not seeing anything. Your eyes aren't seeing anything in that moment, from what I am guessing. I could be guessing this. It sounds cool, though. You are truly in your mind. Your eyes are literally not seeing. I mean, they are taking in light and vision, but you're not consciously aware of it. You're not processing it the way you are when you're awake. When you're awake, the vision coming into your eyes is being consciously processed and incorporated into your reality. When you're asleep, you're in a dream. Remember, you were running down the street, some guy was chasing you. You weren't seeing the back of your eyelids. You were seeing your neighborhood street and the sun and a guy chasing you. You were seeing inside your mind, not through your eyes. And so I did find that interesting. I was like, well, blind people always wear sunglasses for that exact reason, because their eyes just kind of like wander around. When the eyes are literally not seeing, they have nothing to focus on, and therefore they just kind of just wander. And so blind people wear the sunglasses so their eyes aren't just going all over the place. Respect. So I found that kind of interesting. I was like, okay, so when your eyes are going nuts during your REM sleep, when your eyes aren't consciously focused on something, they just kind of start moving around. So when you're asleep, your eyes are obviously still working. They're just not being used. They're all like on standby, according to your brain, and you're seeing things inside your mind. And really, the only way that we differentiate between reality and a dream is reality is what you consciously take in. Reality is what you see when you open your eyes. That's real. Because we all see it when we open our eyes. We all agree that that's reality. If you told me you were talking to me last night in a dream, and then we're like, yeah, dude, remember when you said that? And I'd be like, dude, that was in your mind. That wasn't real. I didn't say that to you last night. Like, dude, literally, we were sitting on a boat in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and I was like riding a shark, and then there was a spaceship, and it came down, and you were like, dude, that's nuts. You don't remember that? Dude, that was your dream. That wasn't real. But if we both agreed that we were sitting on a boat, riding sharks and talking to aliens, then we'd be like, well, I was there for that. I remember that. That was real. So reality is just what we all agree upon, essentially. Outside of that, your brain really has no way of distinguishing between what is real and what is not real. We hear this all the time about the theory of relativity, that motion is relative, meaning that when you're in a car driving down the highway at 60 miles per hour and you're in the back seat and you hold a baseball and you toss it to your brother across the car, the baseball doesn't go this way backwards, 60 miles per hour. It goes right across to your brother the same way as if you were stopped at a red light. Why? Because when you're in that car going 60 miles per hour on the highway, you may think you're at rest. You may think you're sitting still in that seat, but you're not. You're actually moving 60 miles per hour. And that baseball is already moving 60 miles per hour. If somebody threw a baseball at 60 miles per hour down the highway just as your car passed them, that 60 mile per hour baseball would obviously be going the same speed as the baseball in your hand going 60 miles per hour in the car. In fact, when you looked out your window, that baseball would appear to be just standing still. It would just be right next to your window. Like, okay, what's that baseball doing just floating out there? And if you were to take your hand with your baseball and hold it out the window and let go, that baseball would be moving forward with the same amount of velocity and momentum as it would if you were standing still and threw it at 60 miles per hour. Now, this is a little bit less intuitive to conceive of because you're thinking, how could that be the case? If I hold the baseball in the car and let it go, it just drops down to the seat. Yeah, but guess what? The whole car is moving 60 miles per hour. When you let go of the baseball and your seat's here, by the time it hits the seat is over here down the highway. It's moved that far. So your baseball isn't going straight down to the seat. It's actually going forward and down to the seat. We just don't perceive it that way because we're right there with it relative to its motion, so it appears to us like it's just going straight down. So you get off the highway, you pull off on an exit, and finally you're at a red light. Oh, thank God. Can finally stop all this motion talk. We are finally at rest. And then you realize, wait a second. Right now, the Earth is rotating at a rate of one rotation every 24 hours. That's what we call a day. And I'm standing on the surface of that ball, this planet. And the Earth is such a size that in order for it to make one rotation in the span of 24 hours, it is actually traveling on the surface of the Earth at about 1,000 miles per hour. Right now, standing on the surface of the planet, and this varies depending on which part of the Earth you're standing on, but for all intents and purposes, you are spinning on the surface of the Earth at 1,000 miles per hour. Right now, all the time. You have been since you were born. Doesn't seem that way. Feels like you're standing still. You're not. And that's not it, because as you sit at your red light on the surface of the Earth, spinning at about 1,000 miles per hour, your planet Earth also happens to be hurling through space around the sun, 94.5 million miles away, at a rate of one full revolution around its orbit per year. Now, the Earth's orbit around the sun is approximately 586 million miles. That means the Earth travels 586 million miles per year. Or to put it in more familiar terms, that's about 67,000 miles per hour. And I'd hate to take this opportunity to hit you with the old Billy Mays style, but wait, there's more. But wait, there's more. Because our sun, the center of our solar system, happens to be in an orbit of its own. Because our sun is orbiting the center of our galaxy, the Milky Way. The center of our galaxy is a black hole approximately 25,000 light years away from us. Now, 25,000 light years means it takes light, the fastest thing in the universe, 25,000 years to reach us. To put that in more familiar terms, you're talking about 40 trillion miles away, give or take. And the sun completes one full revolution around its orbit of the Milky Way galaxy once every 250 million years. So that tracks our speed around the Milky Way at approximately 467,000 miles per hour. And I'm going to stop here, even though we're not done, because believe it or not, the center of our galaxy is also flying through space, but you get the point. You're spinning around the Earth at 1,000 miles per hour, flying around the sun at 67,000 miles per hour, as our sun flies around the galaxy, but yet, it kind of feels like we're standing still. Well, the reason for that is quite simple. Because for the same reason that you and your brother in the back of the car with the baseball didn't feel like you were moving at 60 miles per hour down the highway, because he's still right next to you, and the baseball's still falling straight down, well, for that exact same reason, the theory of relativity, the relativity of motion, it doesn't feel like we're flying 1,000,000 miles per hour through space at every given moment, because everything around us is also flying at 1,000,000 miles per hour through space at every given moment. So from your perspective, you're standing still. And the only way to even register that you actually are moving at all is to metaphorically look out the window of the car, notice the trees on the highway passing quickly by and going, I guess we are moving pretty fast. Otherwise, you really have no frame of reference because your entire perception of everything is based on your frame of reference. In the case of motion, if we are all sitting on the same planet, flying 1,000,000 miles per hour through space, from our frame of reference, we all agree, at least in our experience, that we are standing still. No one feels like they're moving at 1,000,000 miles per hour. This is not how we experience our reality. That's Einstein's theory of relativity. All motion is relative. Well, Einstein, I see your theory of relativity that all motion is relative, and I raise you, reality is relative. See, in the same way that we can all agree right now that we're standing still, even though we clearly are not. However, that is, of course, how we experience it. Well, likewise, when I open my eyes, I experience reality, as far as I can tell. Now, when I close my eyes and go to sleep, I experience something different. That reality is just relative to me. I'm the only person in my real life that experienced that, so no one else agrees with me. Therefore, that's not reality. We're not operating from the same frame of reference. But in waking life, when we open our eyes and look around at the world consciously, we all agree that this is reality. What we see when we open our eyes is reality. See, if we all agree that we're standing still on the surface of the earth at this very moment, then it must be true that that is the case. Now, fortunately, we have the luxury of mathematics and observation to understand that this, of course, is not the case. It's just how we experience it. Well, that only exists because we have the ability to metaphorically look out the window of our car, see the trees passing by on the highway and going, oh, okay, it might feel like I'm sitting still in the back seat of my parents' car driving on the highway, but clearly I can use this other frame of reference to recognize that this is not the case. Well, what if you didn't have another frame of reference? What if, unlike when you wake up from a dream, you have your reference frame of reality, that is, conscious waking life, to compare to the experience you just had and go, okay, that wasn't real. But in waking life, what we all agree upon is real, we don't have another frame of reference to compare to. We don't have the metaphorical window to look outside the car, to see that, in fact, wait a second. We may be experiencing this thing together relatively to our shared frame of reference, but that doesn't make it real. That just makes it relative. That just makes this as real as it gets, but not necessarily real. I can pick up this lighter and have the experience of holding it in my fingers, feeling its weight in my hands, the color blue, the smooth edges, and we all agree I'm holding a blue lighter. This must be true. We all agree this must be real. This is something, I'm something, and that's how we experience the world around us. I can see it, I can touch it, I can smell it, I can feel it, I can taste it, and so can you. Therefore, we all agree, this is reality. We are something. This is something. This is something. Well, I guess there's really no way to know. It is, of course, the only way we've ever been able to experience our reality, and the only way we probably will ever be able to experience our reality as human beings. And assuming that we're correct, that this truly is all the reality there is to know, and we all agree, and we just happen to be right. How convenient. But on the off chance we're wrong, then the question becomes a lot simpler. There's no stuff, dude. There is no something. You imagine the weight of the lighter. You imagine the world around you. It feels heavy. It looks bright. It seems hot. It seems cold. It seems like it's all really there. But what if it's not? What if really it's just the idea of something? And therein lies potentially the answer to our question from the beginning of today's show. How much does an idea weigh? And likewise, we may also have an answer to the even deeper question, being, how does something come from nothing? Conveniently, those two questions may very well have the same answer. How much does an idea weigh? How does something come from nothing? Answer? It doesn't. An idea doesn't weigh anything. And something doesn't come from nothing. There's no such thing as something. There is only the idea of something. There is no such thing as anything other than the idea of it. Till next time, folks, I'm Jimmy Selesky. This has been Live from the Studio. Leave us a like, leave us a comment. Tell me what you think. Hit the subscribe button, please. And don't forget to keep it real. Peace.